Today we are going to make a steak pasta with a creamy tomato spinach kind of garden sauce for it. And we're going to use some thin spaghetti, so like an angel hair pasta. And then we're going to bake up a specialty sourdough. This is kind of a sweet sourdough loaf. This is my strawberry swirl sourdough. So it's one of our top favorites here. And it is essentially during the lamination process, you take strawberry preserves and you spread them throughout the whole thing and then you roll it up. So kind of similar how you would like a cinnamon roll. With it, you want to use strawberry preserves, not a jelly, because the jelly will kind of liquefy in there. Strawberry preserves holds itself up fairly well with it. So we're going to do a nice expansion score right along here. And you can see that. And then I'll just do little, very delicate because I've got that strawberry right on that beginning here. And I don't want to go too crazy, but the sugar in the strawberry preserves and that's just so good. This is one that I will say my mom and my husband fight over because they love this. And if there's extra, they're always like, no, I want it. Because a lot of times I don't do this in a great big loaf, but I do it in my mini bowls. And then there's like a small piece. And they're always like looking at each other, who's going to take the last piece of it. So we're doing a big loaf of it and a big loaf.
And in that situation, who do you give it to?
I give it to my mom every single time. We're going to put it in here. We're going to bake it at 500 degrees for 20 minutes. And then we'll take the lid off and bake it for 450 for 20 minutes after that. While we are waiting, I've got my water boiling here. We're not going to drop it in yet, but I'm going to add some salt because we are going to use a little bit of this pasta water in our sauce. So a couple good sprinkles in here. That way we can reserve some. And then we can start getting our veggies, our onions caramelizing up to bring in the flavor. And then we're going to, I'm going to actually cut this is a sirloin cap, but I'm going to cut it into like little sirloin pieces that we can then sear off in our pan for this. Actually, I'm going to do that first because I realize I want to cut them off, sear them, and let them sit. And then we'll kind of pop them up and warm them up here. He's not going over. Cameraman's already decided that he wants the food by him, and I'm saying not going to happen. So what I'm going to do is where's my cleaver? Here it is. I'm going to cut this into kind of almost like I'm cutting it into little steaks, and then we will sear it off. I'm actually deciding which way I want to cut it. This is from our butcher box, and so I think I'm going to cut it this way, and we'll have it, and then we'll sear them off both sides, and then we'll slice them up at the end. That way they'll be nice and kind of a medium rare. But I'm interested. I was trying to decide exactly what to do with dinner tonight, and this is like, then I wanted to use this sirloin cap, and it kind of wasn't quite big enough to do just a roast with it. And so actually, I think it will be really wonderful as our in addition to our pasta. Because when you do a roast, the meat is more like thing, but with a pasta, I feel like your protein is more of an ancillary, like a secondary thing. Now my husband's like, no, and this is about 2 pounds of a sirloin cap. And I'm going to trim off this just a little bit of fat right here. I'm trying to see, and we'll get these. Trying to get them roughly the same thickness so that we can pan sear them off nicely. So we've got our nice kind of, they're not going to be left whole. The cameraman, my videographer, as he likes to note himself, is like, I want this one. I said, I'm going to pan sear them on high heat, and then we will remove them, let them sit nice medium rare, and then I will slice them up to then lay over the top of the thing. So nobody's just getting a thing. I'm just just reminding him that he does not get to pick one of these. We're going to drizzle each one with some Worcestershire. This is going to help break down the natural fat in the sirloin. And just a little bit of drizzle on each one. I'm going to kind of rub it in and coat it around. And then we'll flip it over and do the same on the other side. There. And then we're going to use a little bit of garlic salt. Get this. I'm just going to go wash my hands. That way I can do it. We'll sprinkle a little bit of garlic salt over it and then a little bit of black pepper. And that's kind of simple, just simplicity in it. Don't need to overcomplicate it. So a little garlic salt on each one. And nice and lovely. And then a little bit of black pepper. What I'm going to do is pour a little bit in my hand so that I can sprinkle it off. And a little bit on here. Because we want these to be fairly seasoned well because they're going to go on top of our pasta. Flip them over. We're going to do the same on the other side as well. And this is just our sirloin cap. So it is a nice like sirloin steak, but it's the top sirloin cap. So it will be nice and tender, but it's not quite as nice as a true sirloin. So it's actually nice to kind of be used with a pasta versus a straight up, I'm just going to eat a steak.
Agreed.
Wow, you can't really listen to the cameraman. He doesn't like pasta, so his dinner is going to consist of eating all his steak chunks and lots of strawberry sourdough bread because he loves strawberry sourdough. He will eat a few noodles. He doesn't eat very much, like spaghetti and meatballs. He has like 10 meatballs and like 1 noodle per meatball. It's kind of ridiculous on there. Okay, we are going to cook these off on a high temperature. So I want them to sear them really nicely, get a good crust on both sides, and then we're going to remove them, and then we'll let them sit. And then right before we serve them up, at the very end, I will pop them in my oven after they've sat on here for just a few minutes to kind of re-warm them and get them nice and tender. You don't want to cook them all the way through on your pan because if you do that, what's going to happen is you're going to get a really tough piece of meat. So sear off both sides. We're going to let it sit, kind of cook there, and then we'll finish it off in the oven for a little bit on that, just to kind of get a last little reheat, and then I'll slice it up and put it over there. But I want a nice medium rare on my pasta or on my steak. So we're going to let me get a little bit more oil in here. Now this is, I'm going to use my pasta pan for this or my 6-quart saute pan because I want to use this meat drippings to make our kind of sauce here. So I'm going to drizzle my oil all the way around. And once it's nice and hot, I'll put those in. Luckily, we can sear all of those off at the exact same time. While we're waiting for that, let's get our onions kind of going for this.
Got another comment about the apron.
Oh, yeah, this one, I know. I really, really like it. And you know what? It's completely thing, but they match it matches my leggings and my sweatshirt. I know this is so random, but I'm like, ooh, that's like matched it. I know it's random, but I like stuff like that. Back in my younger days when I used to put more effort into style versus comfort, I would match everything up. I would have different purses. My earrings would match. I haven't worn earrings in like 20 years, but my earrings would match. My jewelry would match. Everything was matched and coordinated, and it was like perfectly put together. And then I realized I enjoy being comfortable, and comfort slowly took over and has been the winner. Now, when I do, it's always funny when I do have to like dress up nice because I'm out of the house or whatnot. My 10-year-old daughter goes, "Oh, Mama, you're so pretty when you put on makeup and you dress nice and you wear your hair down." And I was like, thanks, Evie. Real nice compliment there. And I was like, yeah, but I don't need to do it right now. I get up early enough in the morning, and so my clothes is comfortable. And I've been cleaning out my garage this week, so I'm really kind of disheveled looking here. My hair's crazy and everything. I still got my tennis shoes on, and that's only because if I don't wear tennis shoes in my garage, I will slip and fall. Um, we actually had to, my husband, it's almost like I have my own red carpet in the garage. He installed a long strip of carpet, like industrial carpet, to go from our door to the end of the garage because I kept slipping and falling. And I don't know why. I slip and fall a lot, but I do. And I have, ever since he did that, I had not slipped and fall, but I think, gosh, he would just be hear me screaming and I would be like in the recycling boxes. And there. It should be nice and hot now. So we're going to drop our sirloins on here. And then we're going to sear them off on both sides so we have a nice crust on them for it. Yeah, beautiful. I'm going to put my thickest ones in right now. And then we're going to get our little guys in here. Almost dropped them. They smell good already. Beautiful. So we're going to sear it off. I'm going to do it on about a 7 to get a good, nice crust on that side. We'll flip it over, another crust. If I was not going to use the meat drippings in this pan for my pasta, I would probably do this in either like a heavier skillet, just because it kind of gives you a nice little, retains the heat a little bit better.
You have a question? Do you use Worcestershire on all cuts of beef?
I do use them on a majority of the cuts of beef when I'm using it. Now, if I'm making a chuck roast where I'm using it in like a beef bourguignon, I'll use different types of things. Like a lot of times for that, I'll use, a red wine to help break down the meat and those things. But for the most part, it acts like it has vinegar in it. So it has the acidity in it that you need to break down the natural fat, which makes your meat more juicy. Now, you actually can't taste it when you cook it up. So it has a strong flavor if you were to just eat it like right out of the bottle or drink it right out of the bottle. But when you cook it up, you can't taste it at all. There, I'm going to flip it around. And then once I kind of see this nice kind of crust forming here, I'm actually going to get rid of this. Then we'll flip each side for it. But again, I don't want to cook them all the way through. I want to get a nice kind of sear on each side. And then we'll cook up our stuff in these things. So looking good. I'm turning it just a smidge in there, and we'll let that kind of sear for a minute or so. I'm going to mince up my onions just a little bit more here, because I like to have little smaller bits of onions in my pasta kind of sauces. So you get all the great flavor from the caramelization, but not necessarily a texture of a big chunky onion. And then let's drop our noodles in for this. So we're going to use some nice thin noodles for this. And I always sit there and I'm like, should I be the patient one and just hold it and wait? Or should I break it? I'll hold and wait. I have the time today on this one. I'm going to spin it around and I'm going to get my pasta spoon out. We'll give it a stir on there until we get it mixed around. There we go. Most of the time, a lot of times, if I'm rushing, I like to just break it and get it under the water. But thin spaghetti gets softer a little bit faster. So it goes down, thins a little bit easier. Okay, let's get these guys flipped over. Beautiful. Nice little sear on it. And I'm going to smooth these ones. I'm going to put this here and I'll move this guy here. Lovely. And again, a quick sear. Now that this is nice and hot, this is going to need a little bit less time on this side. Again, I want it to be nice and pink inside, or kind of a reddish pink, because I want the residual heat to cook it when we take it out, instead of like cooking it all the way through, which would make it nice and tough. And then we'll slice it up and add it over our steak. Beautiful, quick crust on it. So we're going to get our first one kind of going here. Nice. I'll actually flip them over so you can see the beautiful crust. Beautiful. This one, actually, I'm going to cook this fat side for a little bit, just like I do when I do New York strips, because I like that to cook a little bit and not be as chewy. Do a quick sear on it. Beautiful. This one had a good fat side too. So we're going to give a quick sear off on those pieces of fat. Don't worry, in our pan here, I'm going to start turning it down a little bit. Don't worry if you have a little bit of your meat drippings right there that are turning brown, because those will just add flavor to our pasta sauce. There we go. Get that. Lovely. That's like a little pyramid. A little steak pyramid. Okay, turn this guy down. We're going to add in a little bit more olive oil now. And then we're going to get our onions in here cooking up. And we'll get them caramelized. Once we start getting in here, those little meat drippings the onions will help deglaze the pan and bring some of those meat drippings onto our onions and give them a nice flavor as they caramelize up. Yeah. And then when we add our starchy pasta water in here, that's when we're going to get a little bit more of that flavor. And I'm going to add a little bit of butter too. So we've got a little bit of olive oil and a little bit of butter to bring in the richness for the sauce. Like half and half, so like a tablespoon of each. And that's because the butter makes just the pasta sauce so much nicer. But olive oil, like the mixture of it, allows you to heat a little bit hotter than you would if you were just using butter. There we go. I'm going to add those in here, pick them up. I'm going to give my pasta sauce a little stir.
Oh, what kind of pasta sauce tonight?
So I'm going to use some fresh tomatoes, spinach, garlic. I'm going to reserve some pasta water and then some cream. So just kind of a creamy, fresh tomato, like a fresh veggie pasta sauce, but a creamy one, because I just love a creamy pasta sauce. And I feel like with angel hair pasta, it works really well on there, because it can handle that, ones. Sometimes people like to do light sauces with it because it's a thinner noodle, but I just love a nice creamy sauce, to be honest. There. Okay, while we're waiting for those onions, and I have my pan nice and low, because again, this is a metal pan, not a nonstick, which means you're going to conduct your heat a lot quicker. And so you don't want to have it as hot. So I'm cooking this over about a 3, which will simmer it up nicely, but it does conduct its heat higher than a nonstick. So if you're using a nonstick, I would do probably closer to a 5. We're going to have a good amount of garlic because we want that flavor to be popping through. And just slide this guy. And then we'll mince these up nicely. And we'll let them start to saute and bring out their flavors. But we want our onions to completely caramelize up so we get that really rich flavor into the sauce on there. And so caramelization means that they will be golden, little bits of brown, completely translucent versus opaque, which is the whiter color of it. When your onions are still opaque, that means they're still going to have that astringent flavor. Once you've cooked them to being translucent, where you can essentially start to see through the onion, that's when you're going to get that more mellow flavor to it. That is just delicious. And let's get these guys nice and minced up. Give this a nice little twirl. And you can see as the onions are cooking, they're starting to deglaze the bottom of my pan. So they're picking up those little tasty bits from our steak, which has that garlic, salt and pepper in it. A little bit of that Worcestershire sauce that's kind of cooked on. When we add our pasta water or even our tomatoes, more liquid will lift up all of the brown bits, which will add, again, a nice richness to our pasta. And give this a nice stir around. I'm going to turn it up just a smidge. And let's get our noodles here. Let's see if we're getting close. They still seem pretty firm. While we're waiting for our things to go in, I'm going to start dicing up our tomatoes here for this. I'll give a quick rinse over these. And you know what? Before I do that, my sourdough is about to go off. So let's go over there and get it out because it's got 20 seconds. Get my little oven mitts on. So we're going to take it out. It's been baking at 500 for 20 minutes. And now we're going to take this off. I'll take our lid off. Beautiful. You can kind of see that light pink popping through from the strawberries on there, that strawberry preserves. When we put it in here, that strawberry preserves, it will get a little bit darker because the natural sugar in it will kind of caramelize up a bit, but inside it will be so amazing. We're going to turn the temperature down to 450 because I find that baking it at 500 for that second bit is just, it will burn the top of your things. And then we'll do it for 20 minutes.
And what's the inclusion on the bread?
It is strawberry preserves. So during the lamination process, so I start out with my typical sourdough loaf. And then when I laminate it out, so that's when you stretch it out, I spread a thin layer of strawberry preserves, not jelly. You got to use the preserves because you want it to be more fruit-based and less liquid-based through it. And then kind of roll it up. And just be careful that you don't tear it when you roll it up. Otherwise, the jam will like seep out or preserve. And delicious. But it is so simple and probably for as far as sweet sourdoughs, it's probably our second favorite sourdough because the cinnamon swirl is the favorite because, you know, it's just a classic. But this one is a hit. Again, this is going to start a war between the cameraman and my mom one day.
And where'd you get the oven mitt?
The oven mitts, I got them on Amazon. They're on Amazon. My kids got them for me for my birthday to go with my little aprons and everything like that. I have lots of animal ones. It's funny. My kids really love them. They kind of actually use them as puppets. Like today, Jack was walking around with just shorts on, a shirt, and he put the cat paws in, and he was walking around with the little cat paw ones. And it was just hilarious because his big old belly was sticking out, and he was being cute, even though he had been very, very naughty today. Went to gymnastics, and he's been getting a little bit better. It's a mommy and me class, so Teddy does like the preschool gymnastics, and we do the mommy and me together. And Jack likes to do his own thing, and he doesn't quite like to stay in the same area that we're supposed to be in. And he also doesn't enjoy being redirected. And so there's a lot of challenges then, because if I redirect him to go back to the activity he needs to be, he screams at the top of his lung because that's his MO. He's a screecher. Um, Happy screeches, sad screeches, mad screeches. He's just a screecher. Um, and he was not quite the best behaved because he decided, like, the last couple times I was like, oh, he's doing so great. The first time was awful. But I was like, oh, he's listening. It's not so much of a, I'm not completely exhausted by the end. And today we were kind of reverted back. Okay, we're going to slice up our tomatoes here to add them in. This is going to add a little bit of acidity to our sauce as well as a lovely bit of freshness. Let me test our noodles now. Perfect. Before we dump this out, we're going to reserve a little bit of this pasta water. And this is just using the pasta water is going to allow us to use less cream in our cream-based sauce. You'll still get that wonderful creamy flavor, but without all the added calories, because this helps give your pasta a silky texture as well. And we're going to do about 2 cups. We might not use all 2 cups, but I like to have it reserved. I'm going to set this to the side. I'm going to give my onions and garlic a quick stir. And then I'm going to turn them down just a smidge and let's strain these. And then we'll let them sit until we're ready to toss them in. Now, I'm not going to coat them with any oil or butter because they will be thrown right back into our noodle, our sauce, which means they will, even if they stick together a little bit right now, once they get into that sauce, they'll come all the way apart. If you coat them with oil or butter right now, what happens is it almost prevents them from soaking up the flavors of your sauce, and that's what you want.
What kind of meat is this?
So this is a sirloin cap that I cut into almost like little mini steaks. And then we pan-seared it off nice and high on both sides. We're letting it rest to kind of continue the cooking process on a very slow things. And then we're going to pop them in the oven at 450 for about 2-3 minutes at the very end to kind of warm them up again. And then we'll kind of slice them up to go into our sauce.
And you have a kind of a weird question. What wild animals have you eaten besides deer?
Like everything under the sun. I told you I'm a very adventurous eater. I have had alligator, like caribou, elk, all of those like gamey animals, bison, but that's so common now. I've had frog legs and frogs. I've had snake. I've had sea worms, shark, although black tip shark, octopus, squid, pretty much any seafood item I'll eat on there. I have had, all of like the lamb out there. Trying to think what's kind of unique. I've had ostrich egg. I've just not had ostrich meat before. Now, my brother-in-law, who he's an astrophysicist and he like works on telescopes and stuff like that. He was stationed in Africa for a while because they have big telescopes there. And he ate a whole bunch of different types of game meat there, which I was kind of jealous on because I was like, oh, I'd love to try all of this stuff at least once in my life. Oh, and I guess we've gotten like jerkies that are made from like different animals. I can't remember what all they were. But lots of the really basic ones now, not, as crazy exotic. And whenever we like go places and you can try like a new, like alligator or something like that, if they have it on the menu, we always order it because we always want our kids to try it up and taste it, open up their palates and expand. We're going to give our tomatoes just a second to kind of cook up here. And then I'm going to mix a little bit of chicken bouillon into my starchy pasta water, which will add a great bit of flavor to our sauce on there. Now, I will say one of the most unique experiences I had which isn't so much necessarily about eating, but when I was a kid, my grandparents lived in Spain, and they had kind of retired there to Spain, and to the actual same town that they had honeymooned on many years before. And I went to like a local market there, and I was young, and so at the time I didn't realize like that in America you put like everything is either glass covered or covered with plastic and stuff like that. But they just had all of these crazy fishes caught from the Mediterranean Sea out there, and so many ones with teeth, and it was like eyes and everything were right up there. And I just remember eating, thinking there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they caught that from the thing, and having such a hard time going back and swimming in the Mediterranean Sea for a little while because I was so terrified of the fishes with teeth. I was like, they're going to eat me. These are piranhas, because I was young and I didn't know any better. And I just remember I was taking windsurfing lessons at the time, which I am terrible at. I managed to pull myself up from a total of 30 seconds, and I was taking them from a guy who spoke like 3 words of English. And it was like the words he kept saying, perpendicular to the sail, perpendicular to the sail. No matter how much I try to make myself perpendicular to the sail, I failed miserably at it. But I got up really fast because I was afraid of the fishes. We've got in here, I'm adding in my starchy pasta water. And as you can see, it's deglazing the bottom of our pan, which is lifting up those tasty little bits, which is just going to make this sauce amazing. There we go. A little bit of a stir. Just a little at a time. You don't want to dump it all in there, and then it gets too, like liquidy. You want to do a little bit and let it heat up and a little bit more. And then once we've got our good base in here, we'll add in our spinach. But spinach wilts really, really fast, so you want it to be one of the last things that you add in here. And then our green onions. We'll let that stir for a second, and then we'll add a little bit more, and then we'll add our cream. I'm going to take my spinach and I'm going to chop it up so that it's not super stringy for this. And even though it's not baby spinach, these have got some little itty bitty leaves here. We're going to give a good little chop over it just so that it's nice and tender. And you don't get any, because otherwise sometimes when you cook it up and it will go like that, you'll have these long little strings. So just give it a little chop. And when they're smaller pieces, I feel like my kids can't avoid them as much, so they eat them more willingly. And we've got that. Perfect. Let's add a little bit more now that it's kind of reduced off. We're going to add a little bit more in, little by little. And I'm going to grab a little spoon here, and we're going to taste a little bit, see where I'm at with it. Good. Still want to add more, but I just like to make sure our flavors are at the right kind of spot. I'm going to sprinkle in a little bit of oregano, about, a teaspoon or so.
What's the heat on?
I have it simmering over a 5 right now, so just kind of a medium heat, because I want that extra liquid to kind of evaporate out, which is going to help thicken up the sauce, especially with the starchy water in it. So now that we're kind of done sauteing and we have a little bit of that liquid base in there to protect the bottom, we can go a little bit higher. And I want to have enough sauce to kind of really coat all of our pasta noodles in here. And you'll think a little bit of sauce, it might seem like a little bit, but with a rich kind of sauce like this, it's going to coat the noodles really well without it being so heavy. Here. And just about, I'll give a tap on my little steaks here, because we're going to pop those in the oven in just a little bit, but I like to see exactly what they're at. Okay, we'll pop them in about 3 minutes. That way when the timer goes off, they will be ready to pop out. And I'm going to get a little bit, we'll do our last little bit of this in here, and then we're going to get a little bit of cream to kind of simmer up. I'm going to turn this up just a smidge and bring those flavors kind of cook through. But adding that chicken bouillon to the starchy pasta water adds another layer of flavor that just enhances it, and it also replaces some of the extra salt that you might need to add. Just makes it a little bit more rich. Oh. Good, good, good. We're going to let that simmer for a second, and then I'm going to get my green onions ready to chop up to add at the end. We want our green onions to add a nice fresh onion flavor to the end of this, which will go really well with the steak. But you don't want to add them in too soon. They're more like a garnishing herb, like a lot of like parsley, because green onions, if you add them too soon, they wilt away and they lose their flavor. So definitely at the very end, we'll have them prepped and ready, because then it will be kind of go time. And our sauce has it's starting to kind of simmer nicely, which is going to reduce it down and make our liquid a little bit thicker for it. Beautiful. And then we're going to add some cream in here, and that will help thicken it up as well. And then we'll add our spinach in. So a little bit of cream goes a long way. I think I'll only need like between a fourth and a third cup to get a nice kind of creamy flavor for this, while still keeping a lighter broth. So not as thick as like an Alfredo on there, but a nice kind of creamy base. I always like to taste it to make sure I have the right, creaminess to acidity levels correct. And then of course, cream always mellows out the spices, so whether you need to add any more. I think that is perfect. Let me check my time over there, see if we're ready to drop our steaks in. We are. By the time we get over there, we can pop these in our oven. So right now, these are at the slightly rarer side of a medium rare. Well, I will say they're like rare in the middle. So these are going to cook in our oven underneath our sourdough for 5 minutes, and then they'll be ready when they come out. I'm going to put them right underneath, which is going to protect them from getting too much direct heat. And at 450, you can also do it on your air fryer or convection bake. But you want a good kind of temperature for a short one. These are already cooked for the partially parts, but it's just kind of adding a little bit more heat to let them kind of come through. Well, thank you, DMAC. We appreciate that. Now I'm going to add in my spinach. We'll let this kind of saute in here. And the spinach is a nice thing. It seems like a whole lot right now, but it will wilt down to nothing. It's funny, whenever I make like a homemade sog, it always surprises me how much fresh spinach I need to use. It's like 4 bags to make a small amount.
You can go over what's in the pan so far. So
right now in the pan, we cooked up our onions and garlic and our meat drippings from our steak. And then we added in fresh tomatoes, saute that off. And then from our starchy water and a little bit of chicken bouillon, so the starchy water from the pasta. We let that simmer for a second with those tomatoes and all those things, added a little bit of oregano in there. And then we just added in our spinach here. Oh, thank you, Jillian. We appreciate that. And then I'm not going to add my green onions in yet. I'm going to get my noodles in here, and we're going to let those kind of soak up. When you're making your noodles, make sure you cook them to right at al dente or a little smidge before, because you want them to soak up some of the extra juices. And if you overcook them, they won't work as well in here.
Would mushrooms work well in the sauce?
Oh, definitely. Mushrooms, zucchini. Honestly, this is such like a garden sauce. You could add so many different veggies in here to make it lovely. We're going to toss this in here and kind of coat it up. I've got my sauce simmering down nice and low. Really coat it nicely. And then we will get our steaks and our sourdough out of the oven, and we'll be about ready to serve up here. But do you see how, while it seemed like we had a big puddle of sauce here, it really is going to coat up and absorb into these noodles wonderfully. Now I'm going to toss in my green onions here. I'll mix this up. There. Lovely. And the sauce has so much flavor from both the meat drippings and the garlic and the onions and the tomatoes and that splash of cream, which gives you a little bit of richness without it going way overboard. Here we go. We've got that sitting there nicely. Simmer it up and pop this right out of the way. I might grab a little bit of mozzarella cheese. I would normally use Parmesan, but I'm so out of Parmesan right now. It's kind of funny where it has all gone to, but I do have some mozzarella. And that will add a little bit of a cheesiness flavor to it. Oh no, I keep saying, oh, I need to go buy another. I keep joking with my husband that we need to buy one of the big wheels because I think I buy a triangle of Parmesan cheese like every 2 weeks. And we go through it. And I'm wondering, I'm like, maybe we need to get get a whole wheel. I'm going to just break off a little bit of it. And I'm going to grate it finer. I'm not going to do a big thick grate on it because I want it to melt really nicely into it versus a thicker grate, which will give you bigger chunks. And then we can stir this and we'll have just a nice little hint of creaminess to it. And then, freshly grated is always a little bit nicer because it melts a bit nicer. And we're just going to put it on top so that the steam from it melts it onto it, almost as if you were to, bake your cheese on top for it. Look at that. So delicious. It's already melting down wonderfully. And perfect. That's a good base to start it with. Perfect timing here. I'm going to bring this down super low. We're going to grab our steaks out. We'll grab our sourdough out, and we'll get this on show on the road. We'll pop this here. I'm going to pull our steaks out first. I'm going to give them a little tap to check their doneness. Perfect. I'm going to leave them there for 1 second while I go grab the sourdough. And then we'll grab them out real quick. So this is our delicious sourdough. This is our strawberry preserved sourdough. We're going to take the lid off on there. Let me turn this. I'm going to get the steaks out. They still need another minute or two, so I'll grab them in just a second. I can always tell how I tap them. But we'll get this guy out of here. So it's a little bit darker on the top. That is just the natural sugars from the preserves. I've got to be careful because if there's a little pocket, some of the preserves might ooze out now that it's cooked up. But it's going to be so delicious. You see that's the sugar kind of caramelizing from the strawberry preserves. Look at that. Nice kind of golden on there. And then we'll let it steam off. But when you cut open it, it's going to be a strawberry swirl in there. That will just be wonderful and so delicious. This, again, is one of my favorite ones. You just have to make sure there's a couple of hints. You have to be very careful with making sure that you use preserves and not a jelly. And then spread it thin and then make sure when you shape it up that you don't tear it. Otherwise, it will ooze out. I'm going to grab our steaks. Hey, Miss Bruni. And we'll give them a nice little tap. Yep, got a good. You can always tell how they feel, what temperatures they're cooked at. And I'm going to set up my plate and get everything ready, and then we'll slice them. I do want them to set for about a minute at least to bring those juices and let them set, because you always want to make sure your meat sets for a little bit. So we'll get everything ready to serve up, and then I'll slice those up. We'll bring this guy right over here. So pretty and delicious. And then for this, we'll grate a little bit more cheese on there, but I'm going to flip this over, and that way I can cut my meat on this side. And let's get a little knife for this. You know what? I might actually grab, I think it'll be fine on here. And let me grab my tongs. We'll move them over here, and then we'll slice them, and then we'll add them to our pasta. Beautiful. I'll just slice up one right now. That way we can let the rest of them wait for a little bit. But I'm going to cut it up, and then let me flip it over here. Nice kind of beautiful medium rare in here. So you should have the nice little pink in it. So you see how lovely pink, nice sear around the top. Now, if you want it more cooked, like if you like yours medium, leave it in the oven for about another 3 to 5 minutes, depending on your temperature here. Now let's get ready to serve up our dinner here. So we're going to start with our angel hair pasta. I'm going to make a nice little kind of nest in the middle. And we've got a lovely kind of garlic and tomato and spinach sauce. I'm going to pop some of those tomatoes right on top here, and that fresh spinach. And then we added that mozzarella cheese, which giving it a nice thing. We're going to top it with our steak that we have cooked at a nice medium rare here. If I can spread it out. And then we're going to top this off with a little bit more of our cheese for a little extra pizzazz. And then we will be serving this with a slice of our strawberry swirl sourdough bread. Now, I cannot cut into it yet. It needs to steam up, because if you cut in here, it will all just be a little bit gummy, and the jelly, I will say, needs to set a little bit so that it's not liquid hot. But guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page, so if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to our page and search for what we made. We've got our garden pasta with our sirloin cap and our strawberry swirl bread, and you can always watch and cook along with us again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. I've got my 6-quart all-clad pan, my hex-clad, my knives, cutting boards, all the different things that I use in the kitchen I have in there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for joining us here.